Hello, this is Joy Lascano of the Philippines from Balay Rehabilitation Center. I'm here to discuss the paragraph 5 of the Rehabilitation Standards of IRCP, Access to Justice.
Je m'appelle Daniel Mtambala Mazinga. Je suis directeur du Centre Fedi Congo.
Hello, good morning, good afternoon, everybody.
Victims' access to justice is relevant to rehabilitation, as psychological intervention will still be deficient if there's no justice. Injustice seeking legal accompaniment is what we are doing in Balay, and we think is key to be able that victims strengthen their resolve to continue with their cause and to continue with their case. However, all of this will be an uphill battle if there are no available remedies on hand to ensure that there will somebody who will be penalized and that there will be available services for the victims.
Nous allons aussi fournir l'accès à la justice. Nous allons permettre donc d'accompagner et de mettre en place tous les processus judiciaires et juridiques pour accompagner donc les victimes de les processus et avec les avocats conseils pour arriver à obtenir un jugement équitable et que les coupables ou les bourreaux soient jugés et condamnés pour la réparation judiciaire, préjudice pour les victimes de torture et celles de la violence sexuelle.
We collaborate with the Hungarian Helsinki Committee. As we don't have a separate legal person in our foundation, regularly we write medical reports for the client in order to use the Istanbul Protocol for the support of the torture survivor.
Equally important to these services is the preventive aspect, that torture will not happen. And thus, we see that legislation is very important. And when we say legislation, it's legislation of a law that will prevent torture to happen. And in our case, we have worked for the legislation of the RA 9745 or the anti-torture law in the Philippines. Well, this law penalizes the perpetrator of torture, and it will provide restitution for the victim so that they can, be provided with services and rehabilitation.
We have anti-torture laws. That is the Prevention Against Torture Act, but which largely remains unimplemented. We don't have a single case under the Act. We don't have regulations that are supposed to give rehabilitative services to the survivors of torture. And so, yes, we do have anti-torture laws, which largely remain unimplemented. But we have seen indications of implementation with the Office of the Director of Public Prosecution creating a charge sheet, which will see perpetrators of torture charged under the Act, which they have argued for long. They didn't have a charge sheet for the Act.
However, it's also important that we monitor the cases, no? And we monitor the legislation or the law itself, how effective the law, or what are the gaps in relation to the law, so that we can put forward whatever recommendations we have, to bodies such as the legislation or the Congress, the Department of Justice, even the security sector and the Commission on Human Rights.
Dentro del quehacer institucional, la documentación de los actos de tortura es muy importante, debido a que la tortura es un fenómeno dinámico. Los métodos físicos y psicológicos de la tortura utilizados, la sintomatología asociada a las secuelas que deja en las víctimas son documentados en base al Protocolo de Estambul y sirven para establecer el diagnóstico, son indispensables para establecer el tratamiento.
The government does not document cases in accordance with the Istanbul Protocol, which is a recommended method of documentation as per the UN guidelines. And so you'll find most of our cases never reach court because we have not enshrined in our systems the Istanbul Protocol method of documentation.
En muchas de las ocasiones, debido a la severidad de las lesiones ocasionadas por la tortura, las víctimas son evaluadas y asistidas en las unidades de salud públicas y los expedientes médicos y psicológicos no contienen documentación adecuada de las lesiones físicas o el impacto emocional en las víctimas, por lo que cuando son solicitadas por las autoridades judiciales no aportan información relevante.
But of course, we will not rely heavily on the anti-torture law because we also have the OPCAT. As Balay also work in the ratification of the OPCAT, the Optional Protocol to the Convention of Torture. And right now, we are working on the legislation of the establishment of the National Preventive Mechanism in the Philippines. While doing this advocacy work in the Congress, we are also supporting the Commission on Human Rights in building the blocks, to be able to develop or establish an interim national preventive mechanism so that by the time a law was passed already, there's already, the basic requirements are already set forth by the Commission on Human Rights. And of course, it's important that these things are being done, considering that torture has not stopped after the RA 9745 legislation. So, monitoring of places of detention is being undertaken, and recommendations and dialogues with prison authorities are done.
De igual manera, PRIVA contribuye en la aplicación de las leyes nacionales contra la tortura por parte de los operadores de justicia, a través de procesos de sensibilización y capacitación, y fue parte de la ratificación del protocolo facultativo a la Convención contra la Tortura y parte del proyecto de la ley de creación del Mecanismo Nacional de Prevención de la Tortura.
In terms of the optional protocol to the Convention Against Torture, Kenya has not yet ratified the protocol. The protocol creates a national preventative mechanism, which Kenya has always argued that we have. But essentially, most of the mechanisms we have within the country are more responsive than preventative. For example, the Independent Policing Oversight Authority, the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights, most of them are more responsive than they are preventative. And so there's a need to prevent torture from happening essentially than responding to it.
Por esta razón, la Fundación PRIVA viene trabajando con médicos y psicólogos del Ministerio de Salud que trabajan en áreas de emergencia, sensibilizándolos y elevando sus competencias para documentar las lesiones físicas y psicológicas de una manera adecuada, ya que en la mayor parte de casos la información contenida en las historias clínicas es la única disponible que da cuenta de la tortura sufrida y que dispone la víctima cuando toma la decisión de elevar su caso a las cortes.
Lastly, as a human rights organization, we believe that you have to ensure the protection of the rights of the people, and observe the human rights and dignity of the people. We can do it by doing our share in the educating the public related to the right to be free from torture and the right of the people in general. Because as long as the rights are not being protected, and in some cases where there is democratic spaces that are being constricted by the government, these protections of human rights is not ensured. And thus, we believe that to be able to access justice, you have to work first to be able that humans can, ensure that their rights are protected. And we work along with other human rights organizations in, ensuring the rights of the people are protected through monitoring, through awareness raising, and also engaging with the authorities.
Nous disons et nous vous remercions.
That's all that I can say, and thank you.